So Dave Meltzer says that Kendall Gray will be the best wrestler that this country, the United States, has ever produced, setting off a wave of what about Mercedes Moné in response to that. And man, I saw this and immediately my first instinct was to go crazy on him, and all that. And you just look at the things that Mercedes has done early in her career, how she's fleshed it out, even through, I think, her age 33 year. And the way that I would argue Mercedes Moné has rebuilt United States wrestling on her back. Any major achievement, she's pretty much, done it. And I think I had to kind of check myself for a second and then remind myself what Dave, I think, is doing. Now, when you're an analyst, you don't necessarily become who you are by playing it safe all the time. And I know it sounds wild, to think this is what Mercedes did by whatever age, this is, Brooklyn, what about all that stuff? But the thing is, Dave and anybody that makes these kind of statements on young wrestlers, on prospects, they are trying to see the future before other people see it. So I would keep that in mind before you go crazy. But I think there's a specific kind of discussion that needs to kind of be cracked open when it comes to Mercedes Moné, the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and kind of what I think people think has been a lack of recognition from the publication. I would argue if anybody's ever really gone off on Mercedes or has been, I would say anti-Mercedes, it's not Dave. It would be Brian Alvarez, if anything. And that just comes from listening to the shows and the analysis, and it's just how don't you get it? And I don't know, who may have ever, given them info or anything like that. But because Mercedes hasn't cracked a 5-star match in, I think, a lot of people's minds, it has really stuck with them. But I think Mercedes has more 4-star matches than anybody as far as, the lady side. And seeing that, kind of, let's get into the quote here. So he basically says she's going to be the best woman this country has ever produced. She's way better than Mercedes was at the same stage. I'm not saying she's going to be the biggest star, but in the ring, who's even at her level of wrestling in the past, present, or future? There's nobody. He made this statement after watching the Kendall Gray Lola Vice match on NXT, which was a really good match. I ended up watching it myself. I usually seek out Kendall Gray stuff, which features great amateur wrestling and MMA transitions. This match had a disputed finish, blah, blah, blah. So Kendall Gray has a amateur background. She, was the Evolve Women's Champion, and she has generally been very impressive in her appearances. I know it kind of feels like an attack on Mercedes, and I don't think you should see it as one. I think that every one of these is kind of notable because he kind of did the same thing with Tiffany Stratton. He said pretty much the same exact verbiage. Now, I don't know if this is Dave chasing whatever flavor of the month, kind of appeals to his eye or anything like that. But for me, this kind of shows why Mercedes had to take her career in her own control. I think people are sensitive about this when it comes to Mercedes because this is a large part of her legacy. This is her Hall of Fame case, which her numbers were embarrassing in my opinion, for the Wrestling Observer newsletter Hall of Fame the first year. And it's I just don't know what people are doing when they're thinking about how women's wrestling has been rebuilt in this country and who it's been kind of led by. For a long time, Dave was a heavy Charlotte advocate. Don't let it slip through the archives. And it doesn't ever really seem he was that excited about Mercedes. And that has stuck for a lot of people. And this is another example of it. I think the Tiffany Stratton thing, people bringing that back up, is very valid because we've already, I think, started to see the fall off of Tiffany Stratton from being looked at as this major prospect as she did when she was coming up. And then, she had, a WrestleMania match that wasn't, quite on the level. And a few title matches, and it was just like, nah, I don't know if it's all there. There's a lot of inexperience. There's a lot of being unwilling to hit. To say this Kendall Gray thing now, when Mercedes is going around the world, losing all these championships, doing business the correct way, probably documenting all of this, because this stuff needs to be seen and advocated for and rolled out as, you know, a package to build her legend, because no one's going to do it for her, seemingly. The biggest reviewer and historian does not seem to be in her corner in most people's eyes. She left the biggest promotion in the world, and AEW has had weaknesses as far as myth building. So it's on Mercedes, kind of, and it's on Mercedes' fans to advocate her cause, and I don't blame them whatsoever for that. But I think Dave is trying to be ahead. He's trying to look forward. And if you've never watched Kendall Gray is awesome. I have nothing negative to say about Kendall Gray. I think she has immense potential, and I'm already a fan. And it's rare that somebody out of like Evolve, I was already like tapped in when she was wrestling in Evolve. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of happens with her, because it's not like she has the biggest character in the world. She's not a great speaker or anything. Like, I haven't seen any promos that I'm like, oh yeah, like there's something here. And you know, are they just going to let her be a great wrestler in WWE? Highly unlikely. So, like, this is somebody that potentially could end up like a Mercedes one day, to where she's going around the world. She's wrestling for different promotions. And I think that she is such a strong departure from most of the, you know, women in WWE. I think Kendall Gray is appealing to people that want to watch great wrestling. And, you know, I would say check out her match with Lola Vice if you've never watched Kendall Gray. But this is, you know, the fight that Mercedes has had. Like, she's had to always kind of be on the other side of what the major reviewers or the major company wanted to spotlight. Whether it was Ronda Rousey, whether it was Alexa Bliss, whether it was Charlotte, whether it was Becky, whether it's Kendall Gray now. There's a pattern here. And a lot of people see this pattern. But when you bring this up to them, it's like, oh, how could you? How could you? You know, but this, we have to be able to say it. It's like, this black woman has decided that, you know, from the age of when she was in chaotic wrestling, when she was in NXT, she was already setting fire to wrestling. And I think that for her to become the legend that she is, she had to walk a path that many are not willing to do. And there's been a lack of respect for that, flat out. And I guess it's up to someone like me to begin, you know, chronicling this and calling it out and speaking on, hey, we got to be more careful with these kind of statements. And I know it's easy to look at a young wrestler like a Kendall Gray and be like, and get lost, essentially, right? However, we cannot just be all willy-nilly with these statements, because so many people have responded to Dave, and you know, Dave's Dave. Like, he's going to have these thoughts, and he's going to, you know, double and triple down, and, you know, in Dave Meltzer's mind, he knows what he's talking about, and I'm not here to basically say he's wrong or anything like that. What I say is he should probably speak with more care, and he should probably look at the replies in a sense, like, to where it's like, okay, you're getting a lot of negativity back, but is there some kind of things that have led to this negativity in the past? Like, what has my coverage been like the last decade or so? Has this been a buildup that things kind of go like this for, you know, how, you know, I evaluate Mercedes? And it's been a running joke on the 5-star thing. I don't really get too caught up, you know, whether Mercedes has a 5 or not. Like I said, tons of 4-star matches, and I know the Mercedes matches in my mind that I think of that I'm like, yeah, she was the one for this time. Like, you don't get Bianca at WrestleMania, you know, having her great moment without Mercedes. You don't get NXT essentially building up women's wrestling in this country and transitioning it from the bra and panty stuff and all the, you know, all the other stuff. Mercedes is a classic wrestler. And I think her taking back her career is something that more people should be talking about as inspiring. More people should be revering this. But for some reason, they just don't. And I'll let you tell it. Why don't you think Mercedes Moné is more revered? Let me know in the comments. Peace.
P-Dub in the house. Go and hit that like button on your way out. Leave a few words and I'll holler back soon. Till we meet again, reach the stars and the moon. Woo!